Hello, you guys. It's Adrian, Capricorn Tigress of astrologyaLookInside.com. And it's funny. I decided to come and do this. I'm recording it. I was going to go live, and I don't know, you guys. Should I go live? I have put off going live all week. But if I go live, then I don't have to come back and put whatever it is I'm doing on the internet later. I don't know. I'm trying to decide. I'm trying to decide if I'm going to go live. Maybe I'll make another one and go live on that one. How's that? Maybe I'll do that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Okay, let me fix this music. This music is so weirdly appropriate for how I've been feeling. But let me explain. Let me explain. Okay, so first of all, let me just say this, you guys. I want to come and publicly apologize. I don't even know what I'm apologizing for. I think I'm apologizing for being not, I don't know. I don't know if I should apologize. But let me tell you where I'm coming from. I feel like I need to apologize for feeling vain in my heart. Like, I don't ever want anyone to think that, that I'm some really vain person, although I might be a really vain person. And I don't want someone to think, oh, she must be a narcissist, although I might be a narcissist. I actually was diagnosed as a codependent years ago. That was when I was with my daughter's father, and I was being horribly cheated on and still holding on to it. My daughter's father called himself the love man on the radio. We were DJs. It was like a public affair. How horrifying. I have my Venus in Scorpio in the 10th house. So yeah, I think I got damaged. I literally have a diagnosis of codependent. Now, I am not proud of that. And I have heard that some of these codependents do turn around into narcissists. And I might be. I'm not even ashamed of saying it. I hope in a way that I am. You want to know why? Because that means that I developed some kind of suit of armor, some kind of coat of armor to get through the hell that I got through. I got all the ear markings of it. Now, whether or not I've got it, I don't know, but I got all the ear markings of it. There's a guy, and I want to give him a shout out because it was a wonderful, wonderful um, presentation. I think it's called Rising Ascendant. If I'm not mistaken, is the name of his channel, Rising Ascendant, I believe. And he had something where he talked about narcissism and the different things in the horoscope chart that lead to narcissism. Now, he's just talking in general, but I've always questioned this about myself because here it is 7 years, almost 8 years, I've been putting myself out in front of this camera online, and I'm in my 60s now. So now it's almost like, I don't know. There was a girl that said that posting on Instagram was like a humiliation ritual. And for me, I almost feel like that's what this is like for me. It's like a humiliation ritual. I've been at this for years. I've gotten no further whatsoever. Now, it might be because I have an inclination to talk about myself. Why? Because I obviously possess a hell of a lot of planets that and positions that indicate narcissism. The most important one that I've even talked to all of y'all who have managed to stick with me through the years is that I have Mercury in the first house. And Mercury in the first house means you like to talk about yourself. So astrology, a look inside. A lot of people have probably questioned astrology, a look inside. What is it about? Y'all, astrology, a look inside, a look inside of us, a look inside me, my horoscope, because I can talk about my horoscope. I can talk about the horoscope of maybe some past clients, if I don't name them, my child, if she lets me, because sometimes she gets upset when I use her as an example. But to look inside our horoscopes, to look inside of who we are, and to explore what that means. Or when we look inside of some of these things, especially through astrology, we're able to get some really definitive answers to things. It's crazy. But even as he was talking about some of the aspects and things that he thought led to narcissism, I tended to agree. That's what I would always look at when I look at horoscopes. I call them horoscopes. But that's what I would tend to look at sometimes. And I know that astrologically, that one of the placements that I had has already been deemed as the worst placement in all of astrology. You want to know what it is, right? Yeah. So I have the moon in the fourth house. So the moon is exalted. Okay. It's dignified, exalted. It's in the fourth house, which is its natural home, and it's happy there. Okay, that's the moon. Okay, in the fourth house, in Taurus. Okay, opposing Neptune in Scorpio on the midheaven. So basically, the moon is conjunct the nadir, and Neptune is within 3 degrees of the midheaven. And it's bad enough to have Neptune on the midheaven in the first place, or the moon on the nadir. It makes you very, very emotional as a person. And it's hard to see the world as it really is. I can't say in this lifetime that I've seen the world the way other people see the world. I've seen it through my own eyes and through my own horoscope, basically. And I'll be the first to admit that. Anyway, that particular opposition is the worst opposition in all of astrology. Yeah. I actually saw that. I was reading what is the worst opposition, what is the worst aspect in all of astrology, and there it was, the aspect I live with. So I'm like, oh well, okay. And I won't lie. I won't lie. My life has been yeah. I feel like now, and it's kind of weird because I've kind of just spaced out in it, but I can tell as I, write down or talk about some of the things that I've experienced that it's horrific in the minds of most people. And so I realized, yeah, I've had a pretty bad, like I was raped at 18 months. No one wants to admit that kind of thing, but it occurred in my lifetime. And, it was, sadly, no one did much about it either. So, there's all kind of things from my childhood. Poverty was the most important part. But, that's the part I'm still working on, even in my 60s, is this poverty mindset, because I grew up in Camden, New Jersey, and we were like right on Haddon Avenue, man. We were poor as church mice, man. We were poor as dirt, poor as dirt. And I was never accepted, ever. I was never accepted by Puerto Ricans, really. Well, once yeah, in a way. The only ones I usually did, I mean, at some time. But I usually got beat up from, black kids a lot. I don't know why. I never did figure that out. And eventually I ended up in the suburbs, and I was the only, one of the only black girls in the school I went to. The others were basically family. And so I've never really fit in, really. And the one time I said about the Puerto Ricans, I went to Pine Point Middle School in Camden, New Jersey. Once I got thrown out of the house, my grandma's house, and had to go there. And I started dating this Puerto Rican boy named Wiggy. And I didn't know it at the time, but Wiggy was kind of the head of his gang. And I had gotten into a fight because, like I said, those girls used to like to fight with me, but I wasn't one to mess with because I had spent some early years in Baltimore. Baltimore is not a ghetto you come out of if you don't know. If you don't know how to fight in Baltimore, you're doomed. I remember I had to fight like 5 girls in Baltimore at one time. I could fight. My dad was a little skinny Puerto Rican man who made me fight. He made me fight. He knew I was going to have to fight. I don't know how he knew. He just knew. But I had to fight a lot. So as I grew older, that was one of the things I had to get out of me is the fight, the battle, just always battling. I had all brothers. I was the only girl. And so that was part of it as well. You had to fight for everything, every scrap of food. Literally, my baby brother stabbed me in the back with a fork over a pork chop. I beat the living crap out of him, but my mom said I had the knife sticking out my back and I was still kicking it behind. That's the kind of horrible family I grew up in. I'm just saying. I can laugh at it now at 60, but it's just the idea that we grew up in that kind of family where it was like killed or be killed, man. And some of our friends didn't make it out of the hood, or they didn't make it past, say, like AIDS. My first boyfriend died of AIDS. He was gay. My first experience. See, astrology a look inside's hilarious, right? If you stop and really look at your horoscope and look at it from astrological, it's hilarious. But my first boyfriend was gay, and I didn't realize it that this was the situation until one time we were down in my basement and we were kissing, and I thought we were, I was only like 10. I didn't know much, and he started kissing on the other guy, and I was like, "Oh, I'll give you guys your privacy," and I left. I had no clue what was going on. I later found out when I told my mom. She's like, "Oh, honey, he's gay." And sure enough, he came out. He was a few years older than me. He came out not long after that he was gay. And he eventually married a woman. He told me before he died that I was the one person he loved, and that he wished he hadn't messed up. But he had to find himself. And sadly, I think he got, he played around in the world and got lost and got AIDS and passed away. But those are things like that, heartbreaking stories, right? But I'm glad that I got out of that early world of Camden and battles. Oh, that story with Wiggy. I never finished that, did I? So Wiggy was the head of his own gang. That was my Puerto Rican boyfriend. And I was like in Pine Point High School. So I was like, what, 14 maybe at the max, I think about 14. And I remember I had to fight this girl. I knew they wanted to fight me. I went through a lot, really. I don't like saying I was really pretty when I was young, but I was chubby. I was always chubby. But I guess I was pretty in the face, or whatever. And I had a little body. I caused traffic jam once. I still remember that. So, and I just remember I had to fight this girl, but they didn't expect me to be able to fight. And I remember I pushed her down some steps and pushed her almost out of the window. And then it got, and we were on the second floor. And so it caused this thing where they were coming to beat me up because I hurt her for real. I wasn't, look, my dad told me, you hit him, you hit him, you hit him, and then you run. That's how you do it, okay? And that's what I did. So I guess the word had spread that they was coming after me. And I was scared because I knew this girl was part of some gang of other girls that had been threatening me all week, I just defended myself. I didn't mean to hurt her like that. They had to call the paramedic. I'm just saying, it got bad, y'all. Look. So I was scared to go outside, but when I walked out the door there was a whole bunch of people out there to beat me up. And I was scared. But then my boyfriend shared out with all his boys. And I'll just say this. That made the news. They said it was a like a war, like a gang war at Pine Point High School. And I hate to say I was behind it, but that was a long time ago. But yeah, they walked me home from school like every day that I was there from that point on. I was always walked home. I always had his soldiers around me. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. I was like that. I eventually went back to the suburbs, thank gosh, because I was popular there. My brother Wayne was popular there, and we really didn't have much. I was probably the most violent person in that city, because it was, all suburbs. And um, I was lucky. I grew up in a really good um, high school, good suburban education. My friends were good people, Catholics, they all went to church. And I was a United Methodist. I sang in my church. I sang gospel across the East Coast. I was Christian. That's what I was. Is what I am. Now, I remember when I first got saved, I was about 13. I still remember that moment. It was beautiful. But I also remember when I first put my Bible away, I cried over that. When I later got baptized, I got baptized when I was pregnant with my daughter. And I cried over the moment when I put away my Bible. It was a conscious decision that I've never forgotten, the moment that I did it. I lived by that Bible. I did everything by that Bible. And then when I was about 16, I wanted to be popular. I want to be honest. This is an honest conversation here. I got tired of being the weird girl that was like into the Bay City Rollers, which is what I was. I was like that weird black girl that was into the Bay City Rollers. I never did anything with my hair. I just had like a short curly afro, no makeup, no nothing, because, that was just the way I was taught, like just be natural. I think I used Dr. Pepper lip gloss. That's what I liked. But I changed. I went and I got my hair relaxed, and started learning how to wear makeup and going out with my friend Dee to clubs and my friend Scott to a gay bar. I think by the time I was a senior in high school, we were already regulars at Gatsby's. And I mean, I'm not gay or anything, but I was definitely a fag hag. Excuse the expression, anybody, but that's what they called me. I mean, I was, the children loved me. I was just part of the crowd. And that's the way things were. I lived around the Philadelphia area. We hung out at all the clubs around South Jersey, Philadelphia. And until I went to Alaska, that's what I just lived fast. I lived, that way. When I got to Alaska, I met her dad, the love man that I talked about earlier. And I actually fell in love with this guy. I didn't know anything about players. I was so naive in the ways of love. I had no idea about all the stuff that's in romance and love that I know now. Um, Many, 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 many relationships later. But at that time, I thought I had fallen in love, and I uh, sadly got pregnant, and I had already had an abortion when I was younger. I was never going to do it again. It was something that pained my soul so much that when I went to get baptized, it was the thing that I cried about so hard, like my soul broke, because I couldn't go back and change that. But I was like 19 when the first time I had no way of fixing that. And I just remember I was pregnant with my daughter that I had now, and I just begged them because they had said something. I thought maybe they were, I didn't know much about the Mormons. I thought maybe they were going to try to get me to give my daughter away for adoption because I was still young, and I was begging them, please don't take my baby, please, please. And the crazy thing is, to this day, like my daughter is just a mile down the street. Like I felt like I clung to her my whole life because I felt like my whole life I've just been begging God, please don't take my baby away, please, please. Stop, I'll start crying. Oh, especially since my daughter is sick right now. Oh, I just feel like we've been so blessed. And my daughter said something to me the other day, and she said, Mom, you realize we've been divinely protected. And I could just cry over that, and I feel that. We've been divinely protected. I could have stayed in that world of gangs and violence. By the way, just to put to show you, the guy Wiggy, that one of my first boyfriends I talked about from Camden, the first one died, who turned out gay. The second one from Camden ended up killing someone and got life in prison. I heard he was maybe killed. I got to talk to him about 15 years ago when my brother was in prison, and he saw him and we got to talk with each other, which is how I got the 411 on what everything was at that time. But I think I heard since that he might have passed away in prison violence. So I'm grateful that I was able to go to the suburbs when I was, to get the kind of education that I was provided, to live a different lifestyle, to learn about the Bible, to be saved, to experience traveling throughout America, living in different cities and different states, Alaska, California, Georgia, Kentucky, Las Vegas, Washington, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Baltimore. I've been blessed. Somehow, I've managed to make it through all of that, and through all those places and spaces and people and things. And for that, I'm so thankful. Okay, I'm gonna stop talking about myself, but before I do, I just want to say this. So this past week, we're in the last week of September right now, and today is almost the 26th of September, the 25th. But on the 23rd, we were told that it was the Rapture, and today I just finished off those ribs after 3 days, but I made Rapture ribs, Rapture lamb ribs, and it's funny, I very seldom eat anything like that because, well, you're going to pay for it later, whether it's with the heart or the leg swelling or whatever, because there's a lot of fat in lamb. But I enjoyed it. Now, I'm lucky we're still here and that we did not experience the Rapture. I mean, but the thing is, if we did, how would you know, right? Because we're the left behind. We wouldn't know. We'd still be here. Sorry about that, you guys. I'm also still getting over feeling ill. But I want to be honest with you. You guys, I have been wanting to come and go live on YouTube or wherever for days, for at least the last week. And I just have not. No fire, no desire, no, right? No passion, no fire, no desire, no want, no, none of it. Now, I'm going to make another video in a few. I'm going to look at where the planets are. You know, we've been dealing with things like Neptune and Saturn retrograde and Pluto retrograde. And there's all this talk about the 6 comets that are, you know, out and about, and this, what is it, the 31 or 3 1 Atlas or 3-eye Atlas or whatever, this huge thing coming towards Mars, but no one knows exactly what it is. So we've got a lot going on in the cosmos. We've got a lot going on. And I just felt like I had to stop a little and just pause. I didn't really want to talk about what's going on with man. Not really. I've made shorts, clips out of the last conversation about man I really had, which was about Cardi and Offset about a month ago. So if you want to hear what I had to say about Cardi and Offset, I've been uploading those. Those are interesting. I had said a few things about, I guess, Kirk's death, but really, not really. I really want to stay out of that. I don't want to bring any, I just, it's not my battle, my conversation, just out of it. And I don't want to talk about any of those things at this time, as far as what's going on with, you know, in America, the politics and things like that. I will say, I will say this. I do think it's not fair to pick on Kamala Harris now that she's just a regular U.S. citizen. She is no longer the VP. She cannot do anything. She cannot fix your problem. She is not a part of any administration or anything of that. She is a private citizen out there peddling her books, trying to stay alive like the rest of us. And I just hope people remember that and put their blame where their blame needs to be with the administration they have that's causing the current problems that they're dealing with, and not some imaginary administration that doesn't even exist any longer. I'm just saying, there's very little she can do at this point. There's very little they allowed her to do as a woman of color in the first place, which is one of the reasons why I definitely want to get her book to hear about her 107 days. But yeah, that part, you know, that. Anyway, there's so much I want to talk about, and I don't know where to start, so I'm jumping all over. I've got ADHD. I think I have not been on my Wellbutrin the way I should have this week, and it's probably why I've not been able to focus or come to do the lives the way I should, because I should probably stay on Wellbutrin and you know, but especially during times like this, I think, you know, if you're going to go off Wellbutrin, it should be when it's not as bleak as it is at this current time. Not during Rapture week. I think, I think that it might be good to stay on your medications during Rapture week. It's just saying, mentally and emotionally, for the stability of it all, right? You might want to stay grounded during Rapture week. Just saying. It's just been a crazy time. Oh, we got Jimmy Kimmel back, so that was great. I was really happy that we got Jimmy back, and I was happy to see his comeback show as well. Really, that was probably the best news, I think, of the week. But anyway, as I mentioned, I will come back with actual astrological news. But like I said, I really, this was about uh, the narcissism thing, that part. And then there was a million other conversations that cropped up. But yeah, the different things that lead to narcissism. One of them is the moon in the fourth house. I was surprised by that, and I have that. Also, any squares to the moon, I have that because I have squares from Saturn. Also, any Saturn squares, any North Node squares or South Node squares, or Ratu and Ketu and Eastern astrology. And the 10th house issues and what you've got there. And I've got both Venus and Neptune there. Also, the second house. I was surprised by that, and Pisces planet. I was surprised by that. So, but interesting, right? Rising Ascendant, I believe it's called. Which is, I wondered if Rising Ascendant is like me because I have my sun on the Ascendant. And I'm wondering if that's why he has Rising Ascendant, because that's interesting, right? Because I was born with the sun on the Ascendant, which I think also might indicate some narcissistic qualities. I mean, the sun's on the Ascendant. How big and freaking magnanimous do you have to be? I know that I am way less obnoxious than I was when I lived in New Jersey. And that's because the sun, I was born in New Jersey, so the sun was on the Ascendant. Also, when I was in Georgia, I couldn't go anywhere without guys literally following me. I know it sounds crazy because I'm not anything, I don't think. But I whatever I am or was at that time, it was exactly whatever the men were looking for in Georgia. I swear I got free food, free hotel room. Like I said, I Robert De Niro. Like I've got stories from Georgia, like stories. So it was just maybe it was just but the sun is on the Ascendant for me in Georgia. Or Venus. I think Venus is on the Ascendant and the sun is on the Ascendant. I think Venus is on my Ascendant here um, in Seattle, but from the 12th, and the sun was on my Ascendant in Georgia. If I think I got that right. Anyway, it was amazing. I crazy times to have the sun on Ascendant. I love that experience. And I also told this story somewhere earlier when I was younger and lived in New Jersey and had the sun on the Ascendant. I got every job I ever applied to, every single one, including working at like I worked at Time Life Libraries, I worked at United Medical, I worked at like solar equipment. Everywhere I went to, the newspaper, everywhere. It was amazing. Um, there is something about having the sun on the Ascendant. If you can find your zone where you have the sun on the Ascendant, by all means go there. It was hard for me because my son is technically in the 12th, and so it was technically in the 12th. It was a little bit better in Georgia, I think, because it was more fun. It was, off of the 12th. But yeah, any first house emphasis is going to give you some narcissistic qualities. I've got not only my sun on the Ascendant, but I've got my Mercury in the first house and my chart ruler Saturn in the first house. I'm definitely a candidate for narcissistic qualities. And as I do my shows and I talk about my astrology, a look inside, I always feel guilty that I'm talking about my own chart because, there's only so much I can talk about other people's charts without getting into trouble. And it has made me think about, well, I want to discuss more about other people's things. But when I'm talking about aspects or just telling my stories, I do want to tell or talk about myself or, the aspect that I know. Um, because certain things that I have gone through in my life, it may be because of a certain aspect. And so I feel that because I have great aspects in my horoscope, like they're on angles and they're making squares. So I feel like I can tell you guys really certain, like I know for certain that certain things create this or that or whatever. And maybe somewhere down the line, my having gone through something will help to give knowledge to someone in later years, when they're going through it. And that's why I tell my stories. That's exactly what it is. If you want to know, what having Pluto going through the first house is, then you want to talk to someone who's got Pluto going through the first house. I mean, someone else can talk about what it might feel like, but unless they've gone through it, how are they going to tell you exactly what it is? And that's why I tend to discuss certain aspects and really hone in on certain things that occur, so that you have an actual life case scenario story of how that manifested in reality, or how it might manifest in reality in your life. So anyway, I wanted to come and just share something, because I have not been live. I have not done your horoscopes since I think the Pisces full moon. And I know we're coming up on, I think, the Aries full moon, if I'm not mistaken. So that's something I'm going to do. I'll do that soon. Excuse me, you guys, showing my little strap there. So I'll make some. I'll do something and upload that, and I'll get over whatever this thing is about me going live. I just don't like it, but I promised Type C that I was going to go live, and I know some of you guys are waiting for me to go live, and I promise I will do it more often. That is I am going to do it more often. Okay. Anyway, let me go. I'll be back soon. Much love to you. Mwah. Bye.